Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're in Masechtas Nedarim daf Ches. We are going to begin on the bottom of Zayin Omid Beis, the very last line. V'omer Rav Gidol Omer Rav, as we continue Ches Amud Aleph, Menayin shnishboyin l'kayim es mitzvah. How do we know that a person is able to make a shvuah in order to be able to actually keep a mitzvah? Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Nishbati, I made a shvuah, I kamena, and now I fulfill lishmor mishpatei sikacha, to fulfill all of your righteous laws. Okay, so the Gemara says, what do you mean? V'lo mushba v'oimin mahar sinaihu. L'chayra, this shouldn't work because this is something that was already preordained, already in the time of Har Sinai. In other words, you can't make a shvuah on something that we already made a shvuah on. We promised that we were going to keep the Torah. We were going to keep the mitzvos. So you don't need to make a shvuah on top of another shvuah. So since we're already mushba v'oimin b'Har Sinai, that apparently shouldn't work. So if we look at the let's continue the Gemara. El hakamashmon deshari l'inish l'zruzi nafshe. It's just coming to tell you that a person can make a shvuah in order to inspire himself to be able to keep the mitzvos. V'yom Rav Gidol Marav ha'omer ashkin v'eshna perek zeh eshna mesachta zu. If let's say a person says, I want to learn a certain chapter, I want to finish a certain mesachta, and you basically make a shvuah to that effect, Neder Gadol, Neder Elokei Yisrael. This is considered to be a good neder. So Gemara says, what do you mean? V'lo nishba v'oimedhu v'ein shvuah chal shvuah. Again, a shvuah is not chal shvuah. There's a chiyuv of learning Torah. We have a mitzvah to learn Torah every single day. So that's already something which you're required to do. So what is this shvuah? So if you want to come to tell me that it's coming to tell us the same chiddush, that's exactly what we just learned. Hainu Rab Gidol Kamaisa. So Hakamashman Kivan di boy paten nafshi b'kriyishma v'shachas v'arvis. The truth is, to be mekayim in the midst of Torah, of learning Torah, you could do the absolute bare minimum, and the bare minimum is saying Kriyishma in the morning and Kriyishma at night. And Rashi says, quoting the Gemara Menachos, Kol hakori Kriyishma shachas v'arvis harizekiyim mitzvah. Mitzvahs lo yomush. The kivan, you've actually fulfilled the pasuk of lo yomush. The kivan di iboy pater navshe mivshinanta mekriyishma. You could fulfill your obligation. Shema bekriyishma mishinanta mekriyishma the yotze b'dei chavaso ma'oisa shvuah the Har Sinai. So you actually fulfill your obligation of the shvuah of Har Sinai there. Shemahachi ki amar eshna perek zeh. So therefore, once you say perek zeh, which is a lot more than that, havi mushva, that's not something which you're required to do. This is above and beyond. Bahachi dekfar pater nafshel hachi chal shvuah. That's the reason why we're not going to say shvuah chal shvuah in shvuah chal shvuah, because in this situation you're doing above and beyond. The shvuah of learning Torah is the minimum, so you can make another shvuah above that to learn more. Fine. So that's the additional chiddush. So Krishma Shachas V'Arvis Mishum Hachi Chal Shvuah. Omer Gidol Marav Ha'omer L'Chaver. A person says to his friend, Nashkim V'Nishna Perek Zeh. Let's get up and let's learn a particular chapter. Alav L'Hashkim. On him, he has a chiyuv to do it. Shneimar V'Yomer Elai. And the Chesel says, he said, Kum Sei Elabika. You should go and get up to the valley. The Shomadaber Otach, and there I'm going to speak with you. And he went out to the valley. Sham Kavod Hashem Oimed, and there Hashem was there. Elokei Yisrael Oimed. So therefore, it shows that that's precisely what you need to do. In fact, that's a valid shvuah. Fine. So let's see part of this lengthy run. So it says V'lo mushba v'oimed b'Har Sinaihu. El hakamashmon. So you skip down a few lines. It's brought down in Masechta Shavuos based on the pasuk l'har lehetiv b'devar harashus ksiv kra, v'lo b'devar mitzvah. The whole notion of making a shvua is dafka when it's something in which is an option, that you don't have to do it. And therefore, in the event that you do it, so that's where the shvua will work. But if it's something which is not rishos, it's a chiyuv, it's something which is already mushbel oimid, that you always had to make that, you always had to do it, so therefore the shvua is not chal. Skipping about 10 lines. Ha-kamashma nishari le lazuzi nafshe. So he said, it's still, you're allowed to inspire yourself. We certainly don't need this pasuk to say it's chal regarding the violation of Bal Yachel, that otherwise you violated Bal Yachel. How do we know it's a good thing to be mekayim this mitzvah? Even people that typically don't make shvuos, nishboyin, they should still make such a shvua. Fine. So if we look at, let's see, there's a question over here. Nishbal akayim is a mitzvah shu mechuyev ba v'iksuva b'toira ha'im b'shvua chala. So is the shvua chal. This is TB 14. I got that one wrong too. So he says like this: Chal of Isser de Bal Yachel, as we just saw in the Ran, that you'll actually, if you do not keep it, there is an Isser Bal Yachel. However, upatim in a carbon. You're not going to be mechuyev a carbon in the event that, if you look a little bit somewhere in the middle of the Ran, I didn't see this, is the Nehi de imita mitzvah me carbon. Lo emitim Bal Yachel. That's what he said basically again. That you could violate Bal Yachel, but we're not going to mechuyev you to have to bring a carbon. That's TB 14. Again, it's a Ran. There's so many Rans, and that's why it's hard to get all these questions right. But that's what they're asking. Now, before we go weiter, I actually, from yesterday's daf, there was an important Ran on the bottom of Zayin Beis, which I did not address. We were talking about Talmid Chacham can be menudel atzmo, and it says v'chei ala beis shar lenafshe. So we said over a story that he was able to remove the nidui himself. If you look at the very bottom line on Zayin Beis, it's kedai to see. Umiha mashma de menuda afilu b'nei beiso no hagin bo nidui. That we're knowing nidui even on the people in the house. You look at the top Ran, the ilo my ki ayla base. Why is that story, which again was yesterday's daf, but it's important to mention. Otherwise, why would it say when he went to the house? Mi arrived zalkos of the ishto eno chayeves linhag bo nidui. A wife does not have to follow the nidui of her husband. The time of the milsim mishum the ishto kagufo. You would maybe think, well, the wife is like the person himself. A daikle midi boil on beperik ve'el megalchen. It says in Moed Katan menuda, someone who is menuda mahu betash v'shemita. Is he allowed to have relations with his wife? Dim ishto chayeves linhag bo nidui. So the question is, if she also is mechuyev in nidui, then my kimeboila. Then what was the Gemara asking over there? Pshita diafil kiru ba'alma aser. Okay, but it's interesting that, and let's quickly look at question 3 over here. So he says, al yedei based in hagadol aser based in the alma nechol rishon. You see that? Ishto machlokas harishainim sharbene beso no hagin bo nidoi. So it's interesting. I didn't see the rest of this round either, but it's pretty clear it's a machlokas when it comes to your wife. And again, there's a raya that if you're in excommunication, so then why does the Gemara have to ask about, what's the status of your wife, whether you could have Tashma Shemitah or what is that talking about? Obviously, if she also takes upon her the role of Nidoi, then that would there wouldn't even be a question. Of course, she wouldn't be allowed. Anyway, so it's a machlokas whether or not when a man is in Nidoi, whether or not his wife is put into Nidoi. Fine. However, as he said, that perhaps doesn't extend when it comes to the rest of the family. Okay. All right, so that's an important sidebar, which I should have mentioned in yesterday's daf. So let's now continue with the next piece of the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yosef, Niduhu b'chaloim. Let's say a person has in his dream that he was put into excommunication. Okay, let's hold off. I'm going too fast. Let's look at this Ran. So we said that you can make a shvuah. I'm going to finish the Masechta. What do you mean? You're mechuyev to learn Torah. Yeah, you're only mechuyev to say Kriya Shema morning and night. Now let's look at the Ran on that. The Mistaberli, the lav davka b'hachi mifter. Shahari chayiv kol adam limud tamid yom v'layla kfi koichai. Doesn't mean you just say the Shema and say goodbye. That's it for the rest of the day. You're supposed to learn with all your might. And it says in the first parak in Kedushin, Taraban, there should be something which is very clear and sharp in your mouth. If someone asks you a question, you should know it immediately. How is that possible? Not just by saying Kriya Shema. But Kriya Shema shachas v'arvis lo sagu halchi. Obviously, that's not enough. El mekan nearly raya l'masha kasav de'perik shvuah shtayim basra. The whole midi de'asim in rasha. Apapi shu min Torah kivan de'leisim aforish v'kral behedjish shvuah chalolav. That even something which is not beforish in the Torah, or rather some drasha, so even in that situation, it will be chal. V'hacha hachi kamrina kivan de'iboy pater navshe. The pasuk says explicitly, when you lie down, you get up. Legami, I feel a carbon. Neder gadol climber l'chol dinav. The kvar ksavti. Fine. So again, an interesting Ran that says that even though it's true you're supposed to learn more Torah, but that's something which is not necessarily explicit that you're supposed to learn b'kol koichai. We know you have to say Kriya Shema shachas v'arvis. That's from the Torah. So that much you're required to do, and it's in the Torah that you have to do. So therefore, you make a shvuah on that. That's nothing, because in shvuah chal al shvuah. However, if you go above and beyond that, even though it's true you have to learn, you really are supposed to learn a Masechta. You are supposed to learn a parak, but nonetheless, because it's not beferish, so it's chal. Okay. Okay. Now let's see the Gemara. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yosef, Niduhu b'chaloim. So we have an individual that was excommunicated in a dream. Sarach yud b'nei adam l'hatilo. He needs to form and get 10 people to be able to remove it. So why? So the Ran says, "Lafi she'efsher shebeshlichus hamakom nisnada." Maybe this was through shlichus from Hashem that you're excommunicated. Because the Shechina is with 10 people, so therefore you need the Shechina to come back, so to speak, in order to be able to have it removed. These can't be pashta people. These are people that learn Gemara, or as the Ran says, Demastul Acherim, teaches others. Avol tanu b'lachud lo doloi chashivi kuli hai. If they learn themselves, they don't teach others, they don't learn Gemara, so that's not chashiv. You need 10 chashiv people. Avol masnu v'lo tanu lo. V'ileka the tanu hilchasa. Let's say there's no people around that teach others. All there are, there's just other people who are just okay. Afil masnu v'lo tanu v'ileka. Then afil masnu v'lo tanu. Then we'll use them. However, v'ileka, if you don't even have them, leisav v'leisav aparshas hadrachim. You should sit by the crossroads. And v'yosiv v'yahiv shalama, and you should give greetings. You should say hello to all the passers-by. L'bein yud, says the Ran, and mitaych shiashivu l'shalom. Once you said hello to them, yegenu olav min hayisurin. That will protect you from punishments. Ad de mikal le'asara de gamri hilchasa. Until you encounter 10 people that actually have that skill set of teaching Gemara and etc. Amu Ravino Ravashi. Yadaman Shamte. If, let's say, you know the actual person in your dream that excommunicated you, you recognize that individual. Mahu de lishrile. Can that person be the one that frees you? because he's the one that excommunicated you. So maybe you don't need these 10 people. Maybe you can just go to that one person. So no. Maybe they were only appointed as a shliach to put you at the cherem from the heavens. However, to remove it, maybe he was not made a shliach. So therefore, you can't just ask them. What if, let's say, you're excommunicated and you're also released in your dream? Just like we know that a person cannot have pure grain without any chaff in it. There's going to be below teven, right? It's not going to have straw. There's going to be some residue inside the good. There'll be some psilus in the oichel as we continue Chesed Beis. Kachi efshel chalom below the barbatelim. So too, as we know, when a person has a dream, it's possible that there may be devarim batelim as well. And therefore, says Rashi, v'shema hu desharule devarim batelim heim. The fact, Havi, the part of the dream which released you, that could have been devarim batelim. And therefore, maybe that's enough of a reason that we should be concerned, and therefore you shouldn't just assume that it's nothing, but rather you should take these precautions. Ravina Havi what nidra l'debesu. So Ravina had that his wife was made a neder, and they want to have her removed. So also committed Ravashi, Malay Baal Mahu Shiasa Shliach Lacharatas Ishto. So his wife regretted having made the neder. She doesn't want it anymore. So can the husband be appointed as the shliach to have it removed? So let's look in the Ran. Harambam Zal brings down in Hilchas Shvuos the dafke bebalhu de boilon. The only question is, can the husband remove it? Bimnei shabal ki ishto, because the husband is like a wife, which means that they're like one person. Of adam acher, when it comes to some other person, pshitalan de enu nasa shliach. So certainly they cannot be appointed as a shliach to remove someone else's vow. The tsar shehei hanoider bifnei hamatirin. The person who made the neder has to be in front of the beis din who is having it removed. And skipping a bunch of lines. Umas kaninan, the Ran says, the afilu babal. Also, when it comes to a husband, as we're going to see, I mikanfin in, I lo mikanfin lo. That if there was already people gathered together, then yes, he could do it. But if they weren't gathered there before, no. The afagav the ishta kagufo, even though a wife and a husband are like one body, lo hakilu gabi bal el hecha de mikanthe. The only time we're lenient is only if they're already gathered together. Skipping a few more lines into the Ran. Elvo b'taisvis pirshu behepich. Taisa says the opposite. V'yomer adarabba. Gabi inish di alma pshitol an shiachal aso shliach. If you have someone else, of course they can make a shliach. The gabi bal davkahu tiboilan. The question is, the husband may be the one that should not be able to do it. Why? Mishum dechashinan shemitoich shenidri ishto kashin alav, because he obviously doesn't want the neder on in his family. So yosim medaito b'charatasa. Maybe he's going to kind of add a little bit more to the regret. So it's one thing if the shliach, I don't care, she keeps her neder or not. You can do whatever you want based on. So therefore, he's going to say just the facts. But the husband may end up, because he's so nogea b'davar, he doesn't want his wife to have this vow on her head because it's going to cause problems in the family. So he may actually add more of the charata, and therefore that may influence the basin's decision to remove it. But the truth is, maybe she didn't have that level of charata. So it's interesting, the twist of Tosfos. So now let's see the Gemara. Gemara says, Amalei, I mekanfin in. If there are people gathered already together, then yes, then the husband can. Ilolo. So shmamina tlas. So shmamina bal nasa shliach l'charatas ishto. We see that in certain circumstances, at least, the husband can stand up as the agent for his wife when she regrets having made that particular neder. We also see that a person is not allowed to remove it in the city where your teacher is. So Rashi says, Mishum hachi lo boy Ravina, because this Ravina didn't ask, lo mishrala mikmei Rabbi. He didn't have it removed in front of his Rebbe. This is why he said the whole Gemara was he said Ravina. This is a story with Ravina, and he went in front of Rav Ashi, and he asked this question, which the question is, he went in front of his Rabbi. Mishum Hachi will boy Ravina. Ravina didn't ask Mishra Mikmei Rabbi. He didn't ask to have it removed in front of his Rabbi. If they're gathered together, then we allow it. Okay, fine. So let's see if there's any points over here. Let's look at the Ran of Shmamina Lo Yoel Mishra Nidara Ba'asr Derabe. Lo Yoele Eno Nira Kalaimer Sheim Lo Kain Ravina Atzmo Hayamater Neder Ishto. Ravina could have done it himself. He was a Talmud Chacham. Why couldn't he have removed it? It's because he was in the presence of his Rebbe. Okay. Fine. So let's continue. B'shamta afilu b'asra. Actually, let's hold off. Let's look at question 4. Question 4. Ha'im yachol adam laso shliach lahataras nedarim madin babal leishto. Ran only. Adam acher put the berishainim. Bal ishto imekanfin in ilo lo. Okay. Good. And before we continue with the next piece, let's look at TA 13. Neduhu b'chaloim kama b'nei adam sarach lahater umadua ein lilmon mikan shemisha nadu b'chalom sarach hatara. Since it was min shemayim, so you need a chashuv group of 10 people who learn and teach. A nidoy is a message, a din from shemayim, but not a neder, not a punishment like nidoy. So that's the reason why. But we don't learn from here that when you make see a neder in your dream that you need hatara, because nidoy is an element of a punishment. I'm not sure if I read that. That's TA 13. Let's see, TA 13. First of all, what was the question? If you saw it in a chalom. TA 13. So this was Chesed Aleph. Nidahu b'chaloim sarchid b'nei adam l'hatelo v'hu tatanu hilchasa, etc. Okay. Good. Now let's see the next piece of Gemara. Okay, we're not going to. That one's done. Okay, we don't have questions there. Just want to make sure we don't have any more questions. Okay, there's not going to be any more questions, so let's just finish the rest of this piece. Vishamta, when a person is put into excommunication, afil ba'aser de Rabbi, even in the city of his teacher. V'yochid mumcha shari shamta, and an individual who's a mumcha can be shari shamta. So let's look in the Ran. Shamta afil ba'aser de Rabbi v'yochid mumcha shari shamta. Hani lav mahai uvda nafkala el aidi di armer lo ya'alu mishri nidra ba'aser de Rabbi kaimer, etc. Okay. Rav Shimon ben Zvid, Rav Yitzchak bar Tavla, Rav Chia Richa, Debei Rav Acha, Rav Zera, Rav Elazar, Rav Chanina, Rav Ma'ashim, Mishmei Rav Yehuda bar Eloi, Manichsiv. What does the pasuk mean when it says V'zarcha lachem yirei shemi, that it will shine for them those who fear my name? Shemesh tzedakah v'gomer El b'nei adam shein yirein l'hoitzi shem shemayim levatala. So this is similar to what we saw in yesterday's daf. This is referring to someone who is careful not to say Hashem's name levatala. Shemesh tzedakah marpe, that the son of charity, that individual will be healed. Okay. Let me see if there's no Ran on this. Not really. Okay. Amar Abaye Shmamina, we can derive from this that Chirga Diyoima Mase, that the dust particles of the day have a healing effect. So Rashi says Zihara de Shimsha, that just the sunlight has a powerful effect. So that it has this again this healing effect, just the sun itself. Says the Ran, avak hanira b'chama, like the dust that's seen by the sun, kishu nechnesas der chaloin, that goes through your window, kari chirga. That's called chirga. And that also is healing. We know that the sun in itself has tremendous healing properties. Upliga de Rav Shimon ben Lakish, Yomer ein gehenim olam haba. He says there's no gehenim in olam haba. Ela HaKadosh Baruch Hu motzi chama min artika. Hashem opens up the sun, takes out the sun from its outer shelling. Sadikim misrapin ba. The Sadikim are healed by it. The Rishayim nidoinin ba. And the wicked are punished by it. Shnemer v'zarcha lachem yiri shemi shemesh. That the sun is going to shine upon them. V'lo od ela shemis adnin ba. That they'll delight in it. Shnemer v'yitzasem upishtem ke'egli merabik. That it'll go out and it will flourish. These individuals, and it'll be for them like the burning of a fire. So the Ran says, certainly there is a Gehenna for Rishayim. Etc. So that's what it's referring to. Adkan.